Hey, 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 listeners, and welcome to the Mary Sue channel. My name is Ashley Barry. I'm a contributing writer at the Mary Sue. I run a YouTube channel called Hyrule Hyrulean. I host It's Fucking Tea Time. And today I am joined by the lovely Courtenay Taylor. Yay!
Whee!
And Courtney, so some of her major roles, she's a voice actress, and some of her major roles have been Jack from Mass Effect and the female survivor of Fallout 4. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you guys for having me on. I love the Mary Sue.
Awesome. Well, we love you. So I'm so excited to have you on. So, how did you get into voice acting?
Um, well, I was really into boxing when I got out of college, and I also was in a theater school in San Francisco taking classes, and so I ran this boxing gym, and I went to apply for a master's program in New York, and I went in to do my auditions. I had my, classical and contemporary monologues and everything, and I did them for the guy. And he said I had this, he was like, "Your voice is terrible." And I had probably more texture at that point because I was teaching like 18 classes a week. Oftentimes my microphone would break, so I wasn't using my voice correctly, kind of like now. Um, and so he said I could never accept your application for our school with your voice. You'll never project to the back of a theater. You have vocal cord nodes. Unless you can go to a doctor and get that solved, I won't consider your application. And I was really upset because I had had a textured voice even as a little kid. So it wasn't that much different than what it is now. And it felt really personal. Like he was saying that, you know, like he didn't like my eyes or,
Hmm.
you know, how my size or something like that. And so I left and I was in tears and I went to one of my acting teachers and told her what happened. And she said, "I think you have a cool voice. You might want to look into doing voiceover." And I didn't know what that was. It didn't even ever occur to me. Now it's funny because people say like, "Oh, that's what I want to do for a living." When this happened, I was just like, "Oh, oh, there's people that do commercials.
Hmm.
Okay." And there wasn't a lot of voiceover for video games at the time. Um, so it didn't even occur to me. So she sent me to a commercial voiceover class in San Francisco, and I loved it. Like I got behind the mic. I've always loved to read, and I got behind the mic, and it felt perfect. Like I just loved everything about it. I loved entertaining people. I loved the reading aspect of it. And even like with the commercial copy, um, I just loved telling the story of what the commercial was, of
Hmm.
what the thing was that we were talking about. And I that teacher brought in like, a voiceover agent and some casting directors and stuff, and she brought me in for a non-union commercial. I was non-union at the time, and it was like um, a medical commercial for a hospital in San Francisco, and that's my hometown. And so it was a great story about this great city that I loved. And I booked my first audition. And I thought, oh, this is a sign. And then I just kept taking classes, and then I moved to Los Angeles and, eventually got an agent. And I kind of got into it, I guess, the way that everybody gets into it now. For the most part, there was no special tricks or Brian Delaney talks about how his wife was an agent, I guess, or worked at his agency, and that's how he got it. And I'm like, what? I do panels, and everyone's like, well, I knew so and so. I didn't know anybody who did it. I had no clue. So
Wow. You just went right for it.
I just found the thing that, I just happened to stumble upon the thing that I didn't even know that I would love. And then I'm like a terrier, I just bite down and won't let go. You will have me. I will be a voice actor.
It's amazing how much work you've done. Like I didn't realize that you voice it, her name's Jahani from Old Republic.
Knights of the Old Republic, yes.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Knights of the Old Republic. Yeah, and you were a part of my childhood, and I didn't even know it. I was like, oh my goodness, like I was reading some articles and such about you, and I saw that you would play Jahani, and I was like, oh my God, she's been there this whole time. That's amazing. That like and I've played a lot of games where you voice acted in them, and it's just amazing. Like I never would have known. Like it's amazing that you can transform your voice like that.
Oh,
Um,
good. Then I'm doing something
you
right.
are doing something right. I agree. Do you have any advice for any upcoming voice actors?
I mean, I always say, like, I think one that experience that guy, I mean, that guy telling me that I had a terrible voice was
Hmm.
the biggest gift that anyone could have given me. It didn't occur as a gift at the time, but um, the thing that makes you different or the thing that makes people opinionated about you may very well be the thing that sets you free in the rest of your life.
Hmm.
So, just in general, that's my advice for people. Like the thing that makes you weird or different or uncool right now is going to be the thing that really, potentially could stoke the fires of what you do later on in life. So, be gentle with yourself about your differences because they will set you apart for better. Um, but for voice acting in general, I think I think it's a lot more competitive than it was when I started because obviously I didn't know it was a thing. And now people are actually like going to, there's actually like school programs and stuff for it. But if this is something that you really want to do, then you do not be deterred from your goal. Chris Pratt put something out about, um, going after your dreams I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago on Instagram, like where he just said, like, do not let anyone tell you you can't do this. Do not be deterred. Go after it, kick its ass. Do not let go. And I think that's with everything. If you really feel this drive to do this thing, you cannot be denied as long as you give it everything you've got. If it's not something that you really want to do, it's a tough business. So, find your passion.
Hmm.
But if it is your passion, treat it with respect. Um, be as studious as you can, learn accents, learn scene study, go after it and embrace the whole thing. Because that's really what's going to get you the most work and probably the easiest way to get an agent is if you're facile in more than one thing.
Hmm.
It's really hard to just do animation or just do video games. You need to make sure that your commercials are tight, that your video games are, you know, big and juicy and your animation is funny and snappy and that's how you'll probably get the furthest. I mean, that's what
I
I'm aiming for.
I feel like you should write a book of inspirational quotes. Inspirational quotes from Courtney Taylor.
That would be hilarious.
No, it's really awesome. I feel like that story of, when that guy was saying that, you didn't have the right voice, that's really inspiring to people. It's inspiring to me, and I'm not, not a voice actor whatsoever. But I think that can apply to like anybody in any career. You're always going to have that one person that doesn't believe in you, that tries to take
Oh.
you down. Like, I've been told before, like, by a professor, like when I was getting my master's degree, that like my writing sucked, and now I actually like write for really big like websites.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's always that one person that kind of drives you forward, I think. Well, could either
Well, and
drive you
everybody's
forward
got
or
an
go back.
opinion.
Right.
Everything is subjective and what one person doesn't like about you, somebody else is going to love about you. And that also doesn't necessarily matter.
Hmm.
Like, especially in the arts with creativity, with writing and acting and painting. I mean, you can only push that, ship out onto the pond. You really can't control what happens after that. And in the doing of it, if you love the doing of it, that's all you can do. You can't walk around and be like, everyone, you have to love this painting. This is what I mean by it. You just go like, this is my painting. This is what I intended. And part of the art of really anything is that like you're only the 50% of it, and beauty is in the 50% of beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Hmm.
But as long as it, if you enjoy what you're writing, somebody out there is going to as well. If you're getting something out of it, someone else is going to as well. And just because one person, I think human nature, you're going to find that one person that hates what you're doing and ignore the 99 other people that say you're doing great, and be like, but wait, why doesn't this one person like it? And you have to give that up
Right.
because, at the end of the day, you have to be satisfied with the work that you've put out and just continue to try and get better.
I agree.
But that's totally different than trying to please everybody.
Right. And it's impossible to please everybody. Really
Yeah.
is. So, what has been your favorite role so far, and do you have a dream role?
Yeah. uh, well, I mean, and I'm not being PC. It really is hard to answer that question, and it's a really common question,
Hmm.
but um, I've learned something from every role. I mean, there's been roles where I've had a really hard time with the material or the accent or the mechanics of doing the thing. And just by that, like by walking out and being like, okay, I survived and I learned a lot of new tools. That is something that makes that role really valuable. Um, and I can't say which one I'm actually thinking of, but they're out there. Um, I liked doing like in Final Fantasy Lightning Returns. I got to do like this no name priestess, but she was like this religious zealot. And that was super fun because I've never gotten to play that voiceover
Hmm.
wise before. So like that was really fun. Jack was amazing. Her writing was like perfect. I mean, it was like somebody sat down and was like, "How would you say it?" Um, so that was amazing. And then I did a character named Hope in the Mad Max game that came out last year,
Oh, nice.
and I got to do the motion capture for her. And it's actually funny. I auditioned for a couple of roles in that game, and one of the roles was a woman who has no legs. She rolls around in a wheelchair. She's a total badass. And I was like, that's the one. That's my role. Like I wanted it so badly. And I also auditioned for the sort of, the romantic lead, which I was like, yeah, you know, that's probably not, I mean, okay, sure. I'll give it a whirl. But I was sure that the, gruff chick in the wheelchair with the big gun was going to be my jam. And I booked the romantic lead part. She's something a lot more different than I have played in my larger roles. And it was so much fun to get to do her, to get to voice her and do the motion capture for her. It was a whole new experience. So, it wasn't like falling off a log like, Jack is, but it was a whole new experience for me. So I really do get a lot, even from, smaller roles where you just walk in for a day or two and you get to be a man-eating spider, or a crazy religious zealot. Or that's the best thing about voice acting, is really you can walk in on any given day, have no idea what you're going to get to play. Um, so that's my favorite aspect of voice acting, and there are many many examples I could give you.
I was thinking a little bit while you were talking. So does voice acting, and I'm such a noob at this, so don't mind me if my question's totally like if you roll your eyes. So voice acting, does it take the pressure off of how you look because technically you're behind a mic most of the time.
Hmm.
Whereas, with like, theater acting, television acting and everything, sometimes you can get typecast and, how is it different with voice acting where you can just go in and just be someone with a badass with a gun with like in a wheelchair, which is really cool. Yeah, I don't know. Is it like just do you feel like there's just like less pressure to, I don't know, like
Well,
look a certain way?
I think that there's sort of styles that people's voice will lend themselves to, just like there is an on-camera acting.
Hmm.
So, you know, I probably am not going to play a Disney princess unless they figure out, a punk rock Disney princess. Um, tonally speaking, there are things that my voice lends itself better to than others. As far as the way that you look, I do think that voiceover is, um, I think it's more based. I mean, there's less to judge you on, obviously, because really they're going for a sound. I mean, I think as women, we always get judged on how we look.
Right.
I mean, you could be a scientist, and that still comes, it's really hard to take that out of the mix. But for voiceover, it's definitely more merit based, I feel.
Yeah.
I do I do definitely spend a lot more time making, ridiculous faces. And it's for me, the physicality of voiceover, um, you have to get over. Like, I kind of die a little bit when they bring a camera in and they're like, oh, it's just for lip flap, I'm like, please do not let this get on YouTube because,
Right.
you're making gross faces and weird noises and stuff. So I don't think you can be super self-conscious as a voice actor. And I know that jumping from on camera to voice acting can be a little bit challenging because I am far more animated behind the mic. And then to go in for an on-camera audition, there's a lot of um, you have to put, at least I have to put more thought into not moving my head so much,
Hmm.
not having, rubber face, uh, and just kind of holding it and keeping still, which also works in voiceover too. But um, I think it's just each type of acting has its different physicality. A theater actor has a certain physicality, a certain projection, um, and television and movies is, a smaller scope. You're keeping more still, just because your frame is different. And with voiceover, the same. So I definitely, I would say if you want to be a voice actor, don't worry about looking cool.
I I just want to add something about the Mad Max universe because I don't know if you've seen the movie, but
Yes.
I I love that there are women, with disabilities or with like, like Furiosa just has one arm, and like you were talking about that character with, in the wheelchair with like no legs, and I love that that doesn't stop them in this
Mhm.
universe. I love that they just own it and they're just badass, and like I don't even think the topic of Furiosa's arm was like brought up at all in that movie. Like
Yeah.
she just didn't have an arm. I mean, and that's the way it was. And she, they live in a really like war torn universe rather. And it's just really cool. Anyway, I just wanted to add that because I love Mad Max and I just think it's so cool that women can just be their authentic selves and they can kick ass and save other women and I am all for it.
Well, it's interesting because you did say, "What is my dream role?"
Yeah.
And I would love to voice Furiosa in a
Ah,
video game. That would
so
be amazing.
cool.
Um, uh, and I do think that it's important to portray characters with different kinds of abilities because
Hmm.
even, Mad Max is a certain world, but that's the world that we live in. People do have different abilities and different challenges, and it doesn't have to be a war torn. Somebody can be in that same situation from disease or genetics or whatever. And I love the fact that it's a non-issue.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
I I hope that that will continue into. I'd love to see that more in Hollywood in general, where it's just life.
Absolutely. You and me too. I really want to see that so bad. Um, So just transitioning a little bit, I am from the Commonwealth, as you called it
Yes.
earlier. I grew up here, I live here, I work in Boston. Um,
I'm
so
very disappointed in your lack of accent. I
I
have
know,
to.
I know, I'm really, really practiced. But when you get me to talk with my friends and like my family, because like my family they have the accent big time. I slip back. So I try to articulate just because I do interview a lot. So I want to make sure I'm very clear because I'm not very clear when the accent comes out. It's very strange. Um, so what would you consider, what was the biggest challenge you faced during Fallout 4, and what was the biggest reward or payoff?
Um, I think the biggest challenge was the amount of material
Hmm.
that we covered. It is such a massive game, and I I'm a little bit of an earthworm in that, like in the moment, I'm like, I get this. And then, like, I, some people have brains where they're just like, oh, yes, this goes to this. I think one of the things that helps me in voiceover work is being able to immerse myself in the moment, but I
Hmm.
also leave the moment. And so the amount of material, we did jump around quite a bit. And so when people talk to me about like, oh, do you remember this quest or this? Like, I'm like, there's a lot of stuff in there. um, so it was, I think, just keeping all of that straight. Although we had a great Kal-El Bogdanov is was our director, and he's got a mind like a steel trap. So he was constantly like, okay, this goes with this, and you're talking to this person. Remember back when you were here. So I I would have liked to like paint the ceiling with a map and like flow charts and stuff, how everything tied in. But yeah, I think it was by far the biggest role I've had. We worked on it for 2 years, and we're still working.
Wow.
And so, we're still doing DLC stuff. So, uh, yeah, I had no idea. I just was gobsmacked by the amount of material. I'm really glad we didn't have to memorize it.
Holy shit.
And the
Can't even
payoff has
imagine.
definitely been the community that I've gotten to join as,
Hmm.
being part of this world. I really didn't know until the game came out, um, that much. I mean, at least until we were announced and we could actually start interacting with the Fallout fans, what what they're like. And I feel like I've gotten to know so many people and made friends with people that love this franchise, and they're so creative. And I love being able to go, like, I'll just go sometimes at conventions to like the meetups, or I'll stand around and just watch people, just
Hmm.
because I like to see what they're wearing and what they've made, and they're so creative. um these Fallout fans, the web, I mean, it's obviously the game ties into the kind of creativity these people have, but the weapons, the outfits, their spin on, um I just love seeing the versions of people, like the character creation in real life happening is
I
so
know.
mind-blowingly good.
I saw a lot of great Fallout cosplay at PAX East this past weekend. I saw a lot of people dressed as the Silver Shroud.
I know, it's so great.
I love the Silver Shroud. Made me laugh so hard. And I saw an awesome woman in a power suit.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she just rocked it. She had to walk. So they have like a bunch of metal detectors before you go in. She had to walk. She had to shimmy sideways through the metal detector. Because like
Oh,
it was just like her armor was just like so enormous and just like well crafted and beautiful. Like I could probably like use her as a mirror if I had to, because she was like so shiny.
oh.
Um, but yeah, fantastic. I have to say the Silver Shroud quest is hilarious.
Well, I think too, this Fallout just lends itself to such rich genres, like, I met a girl. I love that like 50s vibe.
Yeah.
jiving with video game, mechanics. And uh, what a fun kind of mashup, you know? I mean, I think video game fans in general are pretty darn creative and, um, you know, cons really lend themselves to, it's like, adult Disneyland all the time. Um, there's so much freedom in these arenas. I always think like, God, if I had just gone to cons when I was a kid, like I probably would have been way more pulled together if I had had that outlet of, I mean, I grew up listening to punk rock, so I was always dyeing my hair and changing the way that I looked and everything. And I think if I had actually had cons to go to, I could have channeled it into that. Um, but but yeah, I'm thinking in particular of this adorable girl who, has like blue hair and cat eye glasses. I met her at Kamikaze and just just everybody's got these things that they do so well. I'm always so impressed. So, um, uh, but Fallout in particular, I like the music, I like the style. It's right up my alley.
I have to say, so you can switch like the radio in the game,
Mhm.
and there's something hilarious about blowing shit up and listening to classical music. Like it turns it into a whole new game for me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, I'm like laughing hysterically, and I feel so evil because like I'm blowing up super mutants and everything, and I have this beautiful like orchestra like playing along behind me, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is this is fantastic. And it's kind of I love the classical station. I can't remember if they had a classical station like in the older games, but in Boston, Boston is really like at least I think growing up here, Boston's been great about preserving their classical music station here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I thought that was really I thought that was a great touch if that's what they intended. And I loved seeing my city in ruins, as weird as that sounds, um, because it's wild. Like I tried to find the building where I work in Boston.
Ah, that's so
And I was
cool.
like running around and like I knew so everything like in the map is basically just like a smaller scale, but it pretty
Mhm.
much is correct in the way, like I found like the common, I found where that was and everything. And um I kind of sort of knew my way around the map already just from like knowing Boston.
Mhm.
Um, I couldn't find my building. My building was in the rubble somewhere, but I did try. I was like, I'm gonna try.
Yeah, I
Um,
think everything is intentional. I mean, the the head writer is from Boston, and I know that the sound designer, all of these things, the music, the tone, the writing, the location, the fact that, people were like triangulating things on the map and it turned out, you're right, like they really had put so much work into this game. I think that's another, it's sort of the cornerstone of why people like love this game. You
mhm.
really do get out what you put into things, and they put in so much time and effort and precision and thought into everything. I mean, the soundtrack is something that I would just listen to anyway. If I
I
just stumbled
listened to it
across
at
it,
work.
didn't know anything about the game, I'd be like, this is fantastic. I mean, like Bing Crosby, the ink spots, the composer that they use, the way that he makes music. I mean, you can look up a lot of this stuff on the internet, but his process for making certain sounds and he's like biting his piano string and like doing all this crazy stuff. And again, that ties into the creativity of the people who play this game.
Mhm.
you know it's the same people making the game as the people that are playing the game. That level of creativity and detail is apparent throughout. It's that they push that ship out onto the pond. It's the thing that we were talking about earlier about your art. You can only do what you do, and then the rest is up to the beholder, and the beholder is attracted by this. It's very perfect on both sides of the both creation and the playing, and then it gets very meta. uh, but it does. I mean, it kind of like the ripples of that creativity go out and out and out with the people that play it, and then turn around and cosplay, and then turn around and make games. So I I'm very happy to have been a part of this. It's been a huge gift.
Did you have a favorite quest?
I love the Shroud. I
Yeah.
love the Shroud. I am a sucker for an underdog. Um, and I loved that, Kent was so sweet and uh, that the survivor has this bigger quest obviously going on throughout the game, but that I mean, I found him to be adorable. Like there's that thing of like that we all have inside that you want to be a superhero, that you want justice, that you want um good to come from bad and the bad guys to be punished and that justice will prevail. And I it was very close to my heart. I have a lot of those desires. And I thought it was just cool that, this character would be able to put on hold this overarching thing that needs to happen just for a moment to, for a small period of time to give this man child sort of this gift, to show him that this is possible. And as far as like recording it, for me, there was a lot of lessons in working on Fallout. And for me, the lesson of like, I walked in and I was like, well, Brian's going to be great at this. His voice sounds right for this, superhero y. Wes Johnson, who did the original Shroud voice, phenomenal, right?
Hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know if my voice really lends itself to this. And so for me as an actor, it my hesitation fit the beginning of the quest, but also the lesson for me was that in the end, and I think a lot of people say like it's really fun to play as a woman doing the Shroud because it's unexpected.
Hmm.
So, like hush the doubting bits of your brain and get in there and have some fun. And just because your version of a superhero isn't maybe the one in your brain doesn't mean that it's not going to come out and give people a lot of pleasure and be really fun in the doing.
I was so pleased that you could play as a female character in this game.
Yeah.
I love Fallout. It's a fantastic franchise. I always wanted to be a woman. And just, I was so excited just to play this awesome and to actually have like dialogue this time around and to actually
Mhm.
you know, hear your characters speak. I just like that just is a tremendous gift to the fans and to, fans that want to play as a female character in this franchise. Thank you. That is just fantastic. It was wild to hear the female survivor talk for the first time.
Yeah, it's funny because I
Yeah.
mean, you've always been able to play, but I think people for both the male and female characters, it was people were kind of tripping out that you were going to actually be able to speak. And I remember talking about it before the game came out and saying, I really hope that it gives an added dimension, um, and doesn't detract from anything. And it's been overwhelmingly positive.
Absolutely.
So I I am very happy about that.
And I knew you played Jack, so I was really looking. I was like, well, she has the chops. Like I have a lot of faith in this voice actress. I'm sure she'll do great, and you did. It's
Thank
fantastic,
you.
and
Jack
you're
was a
still doing great, which is, oh my goodness, I can't. You're still recording for the DLC. Wow.
there's there you know well that DLC was I mean you guys I think Bethesda listens.
They do. That's something I appreciate.
Hmm.
So my last question, and I have to ask this because Jack just blew me away from Mass Effect. Just what a stellar character. Um, what does it feel like to step into Jack's shoes? Like, how do you pump yourself up for such an emotional role?
Well, I mean, to be totally fair, she's incredibly, I mean, the material is really juicy.
Hmm.
So it's not like, someone's giving you a scoop of vanilla ice cream and being like, make it into a sundae. They're like, here's the chocolate, here's the nuts, here's extra cherries, here's, hot sauce, do whatever you want. Um, Uh, so s- channeling her for me was just, I had a hard time growing up controlling my emotions. Um, and so there was a lot of Jack-esque experience that I had. I mean, obviously not like her backstory, but um, for me, it was about going back in time to having a lot of a lot of emotion that I didn't know how to control. Um, a lot of anger and sadness and depression um, and just not having the coping skills. So
Hmm.
it wasn't like I had to learn something. It's not like I have to like do a bunch of jumping jacks and push-ups and stuff to like get hyped to do jack. Um, and then it was kind of that mixture of like prior experience and feelings that I had growing up mixed with really good writing and the fact that it wasn't a matter of really containing her. It was a matter of like letting it rip. For me, that's easier than characters that are more controlled and stylized and demure. Those characters tend to be a little more of a challenge, which I
Right.
love as well. But uh, Jack was definitely just like, oh, I know this girl. Oh boy, do I know this girl. Um, so yeah, I mean, it felt good. It felt good to. It's always cathartic, I mean, I think I probably channel things in a much healthier way than I did back then. But I mean, you're the sum of your experiences, so it's not hard for me to go back to that spot. I see, my nephews, I see them coping with some of it's hard to be in middle school and high school, and I think some of those childhood experiences fed into what I used for Jack. And, even though you can cope better now, doesn't mean you don't remember them.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't take that kind of little seed of whatever it was and blow it up to be something that the circumstances to be as big as what Jack's circumstances were. Obviously I was not a biotic in high school, but
Well,
um,
maybe.
yeah, I felt like it sometimes.
You're hiding something from us. My goodness. Yeah, I always felt Jack. I'm kind of a meek person in real life. I'm a little bit shy. Um, I get scared of confrontation easily. I'm very afraid of expressing anger.
Mm,
Um, and when I watched Jack, just releasing all of that emotion and releasing her power, I was like, oh my goodness, I want to do this. Like, that's how I feel inside, but it feels trapped inside. Um, and I just love Jack, and her character design is just beautiful.
yeah,
Just
they did a phenomenal job.
what a stellar look she has.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, very like non-traditional, which is what I love, and she just owns it. Um,
I think she had a lot of, you know, I think that kind of rage comes out of not knowing, it's the same things. It's hurt, it's depression,
mhm,
it's um n not, being afraid of confrontation.
mhm.
I think that's fair to say that you can be absolutely afraid of it, so you will go out there and overcompensate.
Right.
So all the same things. I think we all deal with the same little kernels. Some people just are able to kind of hold it in a little bit better, and other people learn that the best defense is a good offense.
Right.
Is that right? Am I screwing that up?
I think that's right.
The best. I think that's right,
I
right?
think that's right. Yeah.
Just scare the crap out of everybody, and then they won't. It's that Wizard of Oz thing. Don't look
Right.
behind the curtain. We're gonna make a bunch of stuff that
Right.
distracts you, and then you won't see that what's inside. I mean, she talks about it being a scared little kid,
Hmm.
and we all learn different coping skills, and that just happened to be hers. Was what she was basically programmed to do. And I loved that they gave her a storyline that she learned other. I loved that they gave her, you know, the Baron to to be able to like to put that love and that
Hmm.
attention and that sweet pure thing that she has into something, and to the kids at the academy,
Oh, I
she's
love
still
that.
able to be rough and tough and keep her jackness about her, but you see that she really does love she learns that there are places that she can show that kind of emotion.
Hmm.
And even if the sort of the frosting is the same, the cake is a little sweeter.
Right.
No, I mean they BioWare, man,
I
tell
know.
some good stories.
They
That
really
company,
do.
they do all right.
Well, I think that's all I have. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, really, I'm just happy that people are kind of coming on this journey with me as I keep, doing getting lucky enough to be doing more of this work. And I hope that I get to, meet more people. Please come visit me on Twitter and Facebook and all the usual places. Um, and hopefully I'll get to keep going to conventions and meeting more people. And I just really appreciate you guys having me on. I love the Very Sue, and I love the um, just the variety of topics that you guys cover is fantastic. So thank you for doing what you do, and thanks to everybody that's listening. I really appreciate each and every one of you, and just thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for coming on. It's been awesome.
Anytime.